Hi, welcome to Administrative Law. Administrative law is about power. It's about government power and the role of law in the oversight and control of government power. Now, in constitutional law, you looked fairly extensively at the ways in which the separation of powers is governed by the Constitution and the way in which the High Court has oversight of the power of the legislature. Now, administrative law is about the bureaucracies of government. It's about government. It's about all those different departments and sub-departments and regulators who observe and scrutinise and measure and file, staple, index and sort. And it's an area of law which has been expanding at an amazing rate and doesn't seem to be slowing down. Because one thing we're good at is creating more and more bureaucracy. As our society grows more and more complex, the focus of power has shifted away from Parliament to the bureaucracies that actually carry out those powers. And administrative law is about looking at whether the powers those government regulators use and whether it's authorised under the governing legislation and whether it's consistent with the interests of justice. So you often hear people who don't know anything about rule of law talking about how, well, if you vote for someone in Parliament, then they can do whatever they like for 3 years. And that's certainly not true. That's why we have a constitutional framework. And for the same reason, just because someone has been appointed in an administrative role, whether they be the local dog catcher or the head of a ministerial department, that doesn't give them licence to do what they like. So in this area, we're going to be looking at the different fields of law, the different mechanisms, and we're also going to be looking at some of the structures that exist. Such as commissions of inquiry and ombudsman and freedom of information laws and privacy laws. There's a whole set of different tools and different mechanisms that all work in synthesis to actually regulate and control good government. And one of the first things we're going to do in the first few weeks is actually try and get the big picture and develop a map of how all those interlocking parts fit together and how they work. The other thing we'll learn about is the design principles that underlie our ideas of good government and governmentality. And that's going to become very important in this course because one of the things we're going to focus on is design thinking and the way in which you actually design and create good systems all the way from the governing legislation and governing rules down to the systems at the local level that we use to implement and to carry out those rules or to be consistent and to comply with those rules. How do we design those? And that's an interesting challenge. So the principles we learn in administrative law are more than just a set of principles by which we challenge government action or we seek to litigate against bureaucratic or regulatory decision making. They actually form a set of design principles by which we design good, fair systems, by which good government is implemented. And even in the private sector, they become a very good set of principles by which we define systems that are fair, that are usable, that are accessible, that are something that even if you're in a private enterprise, is something that will be useful to clients and will make you an appealing organisation to deal with. So one of the themes that emerges out of this course is looking at those new legal careers that are emerging around the synthesis of the old and the new. The ability to have the legal skills, but also to have those design skills and to be able to understand how systems work and how systems are designed and how those two sets of knowledge interface together. So I think this is a very, very interesting area of law. It's much more interesting than it looks at first. You open an administrative law textbook and it just looks absolutely tedious. But we're going to find the good stuff. And we're going to actually look at the fact that this isn't just a set of dry principles and ancient writs and whatever else. This is actually an active area of law that touches on almost all areas of law, and it's something that touches on everyone because we all deal with public bureaucracies from time to time. In fact, the university is a public bureaucracy. And the university, of course, has to be consistent and comply with the rules of administrative law. So everyone from us at CQ University, through to the local councils, through the road authorities, through to every piece of life that has regulatory control and oversight, you'll find there's a role for law in keeping that system honest and making sure everything works properly. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be an interesting course.